Hello and welcome to the 33rd podcast, where we are going to eventually be talking about whether board games should be released at the same time as their first expansion. But before that, we have what we've been playing, as well as some news, and I'll tell you a bit about what's been going on the site as well. Today, I am being joined by...
You go, I go. Daryl!
Do I talk first? Do you talk first? Or...
How does it work? Do we talk first?
We've
Well,
only
yeah.
done this like 32... Well, I suppose we haven't done this part.
I
Daryl.
enjoyed the Poe Dameron-esque
Yeah, it was
vibe
nice.
to that. Yeah.
It's nice.
Ian!
Hey, there we go. Okay, how you guys doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Is
are
this- Is this the lockdown starting to take a
Do,
bit?
do, do you know what, Steve? How are you?
you? Yeah.
I'm actually doing good. I'm
Good.
doing good.
Good.
I'm keeping busy.
Yeah.
This lockdown isn't affecting me too bad, you know?
Good man. Good man.
Can I say something that's going to sound slightly controversial?
Here we go.
Sure.
I'm totally okay with this being life.
Oh, wow. Really?
I've slipped so deep into the lockdown sort of mania that I'm sort of just like, well, I've accepted that this is life now, and I'm okay with it.
Are you not
Do you know-
upset that you won't be able to use, like, actual wargaming miniatures with actual people?
I don't need actual people. I have all my little miniatures here. They're my friends. I talk
Well,
to them.
make them fight each other!
Yeah, I can play against myself if I need to.
Oh, God.
I've got so much painting done, like, it's crazy. Like, I've been more productive.
Do you know something? Just to back Ian up here with his controversy, I have a whole list of stuff I wish I could have done during this lockdown, and I haven't gotten around to any of it. I haven't done a single bit of painting, and that's one of the things I said I was going to do. But I just haven't had time.
I mean,
It really has been as simple as that.
I've started a whole new army, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And the only thing stopping me from doing more and more and more is the fact that you can't buy Valkyrie gunships anywhere.
Yeah, but we might have more on that later. But before that, I'm going to tell you a bit about what's been going on the website since we last podcasted. The mini-casts have actually been going along. They've been doing quite well. We've talked about, since the last podcast, Decrypto, Eldorado, and Formula D. If you go to the YouTube channel, you can find them all on there, where we kind of just break down the game. We tell a few stories about where we've played them before in the past. The series generally is all about games that the three of us have all played before, and on the whole, most of them we've enjoyed. In fact, every single one in the series so far has come with a recommendation, so there you go there. Also, on the website, we've also had our video review of Fast Sloths go up. That's the Patreon selected one. We're not quite at the end of the month just yet, although this will be going out on the 1st, so our poll isn't quite ready to announce just yet. But that will be going up very soon if you're a patron. Yeah, that's basically everything we've got on the website. How about we get into some what we've been playing?
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, I have been playing a little game called Shadows of Kilforth. So, this is actually a sequel to something called Gloom of Kilforth, but it works as a standalone game. You can mix it with Gloom of Kilforth. Essentially, this is... I wouldn't say it's a dungeon crawl, exactly. It's an adventure game, I would say. The idea is you have your character who starts off very weak. You have kind of a personal quest that you have to complete before you confront the big bad at the end of the game. Essentially, there's kind of an overlord character who's slowly casting gloom over the entire kingdom. When each card, so essentially you've got a 5x5 grid of cards. They represent all the locations that you can visit. They're slowly going to be flipped to their other side over the course of the game and gloomed. at which point they're going to damage you if you go there. Usually it means you take less actions, or it hits you and you take damage that you can't block. That big bad you're not allowed to engage with until you've completed your personal quest first. So it's interesting. I did quite enjoy it. I was playing as... because you generate a character at the beginning as well. And I was playing as a demonic samurai.
That's quite cool. That is actually really
that is
cool.
very cool.
Yeah, so it was... I don't know whether I got a full grasp of how difficult this game is, because the fact that I was kind of like I think it was called a Veilborn or something like that. It was essentially like a demonic kind of a human that's become a bit demonic. It means that the gloomed over squares don't affect me over the course of the game. I just don't take damage from them. So that might have made things a little bit easier. It was just random draws of cards, and I just kind of lucked out by, rather than having an ability, having something that will just protect me from something that was quite annoying in the game. But essentially you're moving across locations across the map. Whenever you move to a location that doesn't currently have an encounter card on it, you have to draw an encounter card. Could be an enemy, could be a quest, it could be an event. And you're looking at keywords that are on the card, because if you manage to complete them, if enough keywords match up on your quest card, you can take a turn to regale. And when you take a regale action, it means you're completing your mini quest, and it then flips to another side. Comes in about 4 different chapters each quest, with a final encounter at the end of it. This is also how you level up your character. So when you complete your first part of your quest, you get to take a skill card that makes you that much better. You also will be getting trophies and stuff like that over the course of the game, which also have keywords on. The more of those you have, the more likely you are to actually complete your mini quest. I actually found it really, really fun. I can't think of another game out there that actually plays quite like it. There's plenty of adventure games out there, but ones that actually use this system, I can't really think of one that really matches up to it. I can report that I did actually manage to finish my solo adventure in it.
That's good.
Managed to beat the big bad at the end. It didn't really start off so well, though. It feels like it's the kind of game that could put people off in the first few turns. Because in my first turn in the game, I moved somewhere, got attacked by an enemy, and died straight away.
Wow.
Yep. Because it kind of like goes in rounds where you attack and then the enemy attacks. You then can withdraw if you want. Turns out I can't roll for crap, and the enemy was rolling really, really well. And essentially beat me in 2 hits. So,
Wow.
yeah, that I could definitely see being quite demoralising for some people. But after a little while and exploring the map a little bit more, finding a few weapons and stuff, obviously powered up, and then fights became a whole lot easier. What is interesting is that rather than when you defeat an enemy, they drop an item that you can use, a lot of the time what happens is you actually draw an item from the item deck, and that becomes a rumour. So it means you haven't got the item, but you kind of know where it is, because each item will have a location on it, which will relate to somewhere on the map. And if you go there and perform the discover action, you then find the item and you can equip it. It's really interesting. These rumours actually play a big part in the game. A lot of the time, they help you find things on your quests and stuff like that. So it actually has a neat way of tying itself together thematically. I also would say the artwork on it is absolutely fantastic. I don't quite know how to describe it. It's almost hyper-realistic, almost. But at the same time, a lot of the backgrounds and stuff like that all kind of have a watercoloured kind of effect as well. And the
Okay.
two of those together just work really well. Whole thing looks really nice. And I enjoyed my time with it. But again, it's a game where I really feel like it'll be interesting to play with other people. Because when you play with other people, like I said, there's a big bad at the end of the game. If you decide to play the game cooperatively, everyone draws a big bad, and the game's not over until you've beat every single one, which means everyone over the course of the game has to complete their side quest in order to unlock their big bad at the end. Although other players can join in and help you defeat that big bad, you can't access it until someone else's story is told. The competitive mode is probably going to be a bit quicker because you only draw one big bad, and it's almost like it becomes a race. Everyone's trying to complete their mini quest before everyone else and trying to get to that last boss battle. It's really interesting. It gives you a few different ways to play. It also feels like it has a lot of replayability to it as well. So we'll probably report back if ever we get to play this with a large group of people, I think.
If ever, I like that.
Yeah, well, it depends how long we're in this
If
for, I
reality ensues. And...
Yeah. If the Matrix shuts down for whatever reason.
Okay, Iain, I believe you've been playing Chronicles of Crime.
I have been playing Chronicles of Crime.
Wow.
It's basically just the starter missions again, but I've not played them for so long that it's sort of, it's lost on me. So I'm introducing the wife to Chronicles of Crime. It's when she requested a board game purchase, I was like, oh, what can I bear to play with her? Chronicles of Crime would probably be a good one.
Wow.
She also bought a game called Linky.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
heard of
yeah, I've
Linky,
seen that.
Linky is a good concept with bad cards.
Okay.
Right.
The idea is solid, the execution is poor. You get like 4 questions and they all have a link. So I can't remember one off the top of my head, but if you can't get it in the 4 questions, there's a hint at the bottom which pretty much just confirms it for you. So it's
Okay.
sort of, it was all right. It's an okay game. It's just I feel like the questions could be personalised for groups and it would be so much more fun.
Well, like if they did something like Marvel Linky or something like that.
Or like no blank cards
Oh,
Oh,
what
that you could
custom
fill
role?
in yourself. Yeah, I think it'd be much more fun. But I don't know. Anyway, back to Chronicles of Crime, which I do love. We played through. We're probably going to play some later as well, but we played through the first one where you sort of do the tutorial just so she got the hang of it, and then we played through we started doing the 3-part one that's at the beginning.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been really good. Chronicles of Crime, as ever, is just a pretty standard, brilliant game that I'd always recommend. But yeah, it's nice playing it with someone new that sort of they're looking at it in a way that, oh, I don't know, and there are bits that are coming back to me, but I don't know the solution. So it's sort of,
Mm.
yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's been nice to recap over what was a pretty good game, and obviously there's loads of extra stuff you can just jump in and play whenever you want. You can download extra bits, can't you? So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to
Yeah.
going through some stuff I haven't done yet as well.
So it's interesting because at the moment, one thing that has been happening that's quite nice is people who wouldn't normally play board games are looking to play board games. And I think you guys playing Chronicles of Crime is a testament to how good of a game that is for actually introducing people into the concept of modern board gaming.
Hmm.
I think essentially anyone could play it. You're guided by an app as well, so
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be a little vague, but that's more because it's some of the really easy missions are pandering to what would be an easier audience.
yeah,
And it's expecting you to make a decision based on what you've already seen, but that wouldn't stand up in court. So if you're slightly smarter, it makes you go, well, shouldn't I get more? But it doesn't expect you to for the easier missions. So it's about finding the right difficulty level for you as well.
yeah, it really is. Okay, I think we're actually going to be hearing a bit more about Chronicles of Crime real soon if you keep an eye on the channel as well. Until then, though, I'm going to talk a little bit about Street Masters. Street Masters is a game I got from Kickstarter. and I've only received half of it. So the actual most recent Kickstarter campaign for it was the Aftershock campaign. So in other words, it was an expansion that was being released that was then being released over Kickstarter, and it gave me the chance to actually buy the base game and the Aftershock stuff on top. So I actually have the base game. I haven't got the expansion stuff just yet. So this is purely a review based on the base game, and I really like it. Essentially, what it is it invokes all those memories of games like Streets of Rage and things like that. It's generally a beat 'em up in that kind of mold. So it's a cooperative game, and you each choose your character and you have a deck of cards. Your deck of cards has your moves that you can do on your turn. There are also additional things in the game, like if you want to, you can play the hero story modes, in which case you start mixing in story cards, which include a weakness and strength to it. And over the course of the game, as you're playing with the story mode, you can gain extra abilities that you put into the character's deck. The deck kind of, like the cards in the deck actually come with passive moves and obviously extra hits, like special moves and stuff like that. You have a basic attack that you can always do, so it's not like if you drew a hand of passive cards, you couldn't hit someone on your turn. You can still do that. What's really magical about this game, though, is the amount of replayability that comes into it. And to be honest, this is just a thing with Kickstarter games in general. Chances are when you're buying a game off of Kickstarter, you're buying something which is going to come with tons and tons of content that you're going to be able to swap in and swap out of your game, and you're going to be able to play it over and over and over again. This is one of those occasions where it really works here, because the games are actually relatively short, so you get a chance to go through the content a bit more. You choose a stage that you're going to play on. Each stage has its own deck of events that are going to happen, and also set the win and lose conditions in the game. You have a deck of enemies as well. There are something like 6 or 7 different enemy decks in the game. I think there's 6 or 7 stages as well. So you can already see, with a number of playable characters in it as well, the amount of combinations you can actually put together are fairly large. It's a simple game of moving your piece across a board with the aim of beating the boss character, and you're going to have lots of other mini characters swamping the game as it goes on. My experience with the single player version of it is you have to be quick. The games have to be quick in this game, because the longer they drag on, the less likely you are to succeed, because the more enemies that come onto the board, the harder time you're going to have dealing with them whilst you're all on your own. Whereas in a cooperative game, I imagine you can do a bit of using one person to crowd control whilst the other one focuses on the boss. It does get harder with the boss, though. The boss gains more health depending on how many people are playing. So that the challenge there stays the same. A bit like in Marvel Champions, like when you have multiple people fighting the boss, they get
Staggers
extra...
up a little bit.
It does, yeah. So that happens here as well.
That's cool.
It's interesting.
Okay.
I actually, like I said, I really enjoyed the game that I played of it, even in the single player, and feeling like I was having to deal with a hell of a lot. There was a hell of a lot on my plate that I had to deal with. It's kind of one of those games where you kind of wait, because you have an ultimate attack as well.
You're right.
So you're kind of almost trying to pick your moment until you're ready to launch your ultimate attack, and make sure that the boss is in range of it when that happens. Like I said, there are ways you can get overwhelmed. For example, there was one enemy that kept appearing on the map every so often. If he gets next to you, he essentially grabs you, because you're not allowed to move off of that space then until that character is defeated. Or you gain defense tokens over the course of the game as well, and you can play one of them to break his grasp. But chances are he's just going to move back on you on the next turn unless you defeat him anyway, so it still kind of makes sense to just beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Other enemies will stand at a distance and just shoot you. So again, you have to try and find ways to deal with that as well. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot of different parts that are all working in different ways that you have to try and cope with, and then hopefully get a few hits on the boss whilst you're actually trying to make sure you're not going to die on your turn. again, it's one I really, really enjoyed. I think if you're looking for a good kind of co-op beat 'em up experience, this is probably going to be it. It's again just like the other game. I'm going to have to play this with a few more people until I can really say whether I really recommend this game or not. But so far, so good, I would say.
Cool.
Um, Daryl,
Yes.
you've been playing a board game, video game, I
Yeah,
believe.
so it's slightly different from what we normally talk about, I suppose, in the fact that it's digital, but given the nature of the climate at the moment, I guess it kind of fits. Epic Games usually do like a free game every kind of week or so, and one of the ones they've sort of just released for this week is called For the King. So I immediately kind of spotted this one as a little bit interesting because it's kind of a RPG D&D style like game. So the board itself is kind of like a hexagonal even sort of play interface, and you get given missions and quests, and very much like a D&D session, it gives you the do you want to go here? Do you want to interact with these people? So a lot of the times enemies will be appearing on the board, but you don't necessarily have to interact with them. You can sneak past them, you can choose to sneak, ambush, or just outright attack them. One of the things I quite like about it is it's a maximum of 3 people, so it can be you and AI, so it's single player, or it can be you and some friends, so it's online co-op. What's really fun about it is depending on if you're in that kind of enemy's area of attack, it will drag everyone into the combat with you. If you're not and you're a solo and say you're exploring one end of the map and someone else is doing the other thing, it will only bring the people in the nearest area to them. So there's a couple of options where I basically made a character for Steve and Ian. Steve was
Yes,
the
I've seen these.
scholar, so he's kind of magician based, quite squishy, but has some really cool like area of attack sort of spells. Ian was the blacksmith, so very much like the tank shield kind of thing, and I thought I'd be a hunter with bow and arrow. When you're together, it's really good fun because you can kind of like do your different tricks. When you're alone, it can get quite challenging because obviously you're on your own fighting quite a few goblins and stuff like that. There's dungeons to crawl through. There's things to visit and like get loot that will like help you. You can level up, weapons, different upgrades. It does kind of like a weird I don't want to say dice roll, but it does kind of like its own dice roll with like inspiring. So you have like depending on what you're doing, it will do 3 attempts at it, and if you do positive ones, it will give you obviously as much damage as you can do. If you do negative ones, it'll start sort of punishing you. So you might miss, or you might stumble when you're trying to block and stuff like that. So it's actually quite interesting with these kind of things. It's still free at the moment. It's up till the till tomorrow. So it's definitely worth getting hold of because obviously it's £15 normally. But I would say realistically for the price, it's not actually that bad. I've yet to play it online with other people. I'm planning on doing a little campaign with a few people, but so far, yeah, so far so good. It's got nice little kind of graphics. They're a bit blocky, kind of old schooly. Um,
It's
yeah,
kind of cutesy looking,
yeah,
isn't it?
kind of. Yeah, I would say it's definitely a good one for at the moment because obviously where you can co-op with people, it's really good fun. I mean, at the moment, I'm playing the one on my own with the AI Steve and the AI Ian. Uh, I changed Ian to have a blunderbuss now, which is incredible. So he just kind of
I'm
shot.
in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
So I gave you a new helmet, you've got new armor, and you essentially just point a blunderbuss and fires in 3 directions, and then you have to reload in between matches. It's great fun. Like there's all different like maps as well. So I'm playing on the kind of standard one at the moment. I think there's an ice one, there's like a sea one. You can go on ships, fight kraken. Um, Honestly, there's a lot to it where because it's free at the moment. Like obviously, it's a great game just to kind of get in and just play around with, especially if you don't necessarily have other people to play a D&D style game with, or you're a little bit shy and don't want to talk to people. It's great for just kind of playing this kind of miniature RPG. Really good fun. Really, really good fun.
Okay, cool. We'll go from virtual RPGs now to
Real life.
talking a little bit. Uh, we've got a few different RPG type things to talk about here. The first one is something I played, which isn't strictly an RPG. It's a drinking game that kind of fits around an RPG choose your own adventure kind of setting, really. It is something that I've talked about on the podcast before. It's a samurai slasher drinking game by Mike Garley. Again, this is something that's a work in progress at the moment and is not it's not going to be widely available yet, and in fact isn't really even going to appear in the form that it's currently in. Essentially, it is a story that is being narrated by one person that's playing as the slasher. This isn't your typical games master, though. This is someone that is actively looking to kill you. No two ways around it. This is a game. It's not necessarily a story driving process, but there's various points where they're describing a story to you, asking you what you're going to do and how you're going to deal with it. You are going to be rolling dice to see how you're going to defend yourself. You basically have 4 body parts, like in real life. Only 4. You have 2 legs and 2 arms. You also have your heart, which is strictly there to take critical hits. You take 3 blows to the heart and you're dead, essentially. So you've got various things you can defend yourself with. You also have, like I said, you have your limbs. You also have a lucky item. What is kind of amusing is you can actually envision as you're playing the game the limbs actually getting cut off. It's really just
cool.
kind of like saying that they're injured, really. So you're limping if one of your legs is damaged. You can't walk at all if both your legs are damaged. Perhaps you've broken your arm or something like that. Really, it's more to depict that rather than saying they've actually been cut off. Otherwise, it could be, I don't know, it would be a story to tell that if you've made it through an adventure with essentially just a torso and a head.
You'll be the knight from the Monty Python.
Yes, exactly.
It's a flesh wound! Come back here, I'll bite your arms off.
The story that we were telling was actually all based around a hospital during a quarantine.
Oh, amazing.
It's not something. It's something that happened coincidentally rather than being a deliberate play on our current situation. But it was quite amusing. There was a doctor that we met as soon as we pulled up to this hospital that was saying that there was a virus going around that makes people's limbs fall off before dying. It wasn't that. It was a huge fucking samurai cutting people's arms off.
Yeah.
Imagine confusing those two. It's so mysterious. They're just limbs everywhere.
Perfectly cut.
But it was kind of fun because my lucky item, inspired by the last podcast I think we did, was a France 98 coin.
Oh, one of the coins.
Skulls.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was my lucky item, and that saved me on a couple of occasions.
Nice.
Funnily enough.
Who was it? Sorry.
Paul Skulls.
Yeah, Paul Skulls.
The one that
It was,
everyone
yes.
had.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the guys we were playing with picked their dog as their lucky item.
No.
Oh no.
Oh man! Luckily, it survived. It survived the adventure.
God.
Luckily, I would have been so upset otherwise. And another guy that was playing had a lucky bottle of bleach, which
Amazing.
That's great.
which was
That's great fun.
which was the star of the show, not any of the people. This bottle of bleach was the MVP of the entire campaign. It
Great.
saved our ass, God knows how many of times. Yeah, it was really good fun. There was lots of... I don't want to go too much into detail about the faults that were in the game because this was a test run. But essentially, there's a system involved in the game that when you roll your dice to resolve a conflict, first of all, the samurai slasher can drink in order to increase the threshold that you have to beat. So let's say your starting stat is 4+, so you have to roll at least a 4 in order to pass the test. The samurai slasher can drink, say, twice to push that up to a 6, so you have to roll a 6 in order to beat it. You then get the opportunity to drink to bring it back down. Now, the issue with this was that we were playing with someone that was willing to drink as much as possible to make it as easy as possible for themselves. So they were constantly drink, 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 drink. Okay, it's going to be a 2+. I don't think you can bring it down to 1+. I think it 2+ is the minimum because a 1 is always a failure in the game. Uh, so yeah, unfortunately, we all made it out alive in the game, and that's kind of not how the game's supposed to play. So I think Mike is going back to the drawing board with it and trying to figure out a system where he
More
can get that to
death.
work a little better. Yeah. Uh, Essentially, yeah, it should be a game where everyone's not coming home, and not only did we all make it out, we made it out quite comfortably because we're all drunken reprobates. So, uh, yeah, essentially that's Samurai Slasher.
It sounds really
It
good.
will be changed. It's a hell of a lot of fun. You know, despite the fact that I said that there's that fault there, it was still an incredibly good time.
I think the good thing about it is the fact that because it's kind of being play tested so much,
Yeah,
it's great that because it's not a finished project as such. He can just continuously adapt it and change it to see what works and what doesn't work. So all like the kind of negative things, if there are any, can just be kind of changed as and when. I like the fact that it's kind of it's like a working, living, breathing thing.
yeah. I think the other thing is as well is, especially with it being a drinking game, you have to be incredibly careful with it.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's it's encouraging people to drink, and therefore you have to try and fight. You have to carefully play test it to make sure
yeah,
you're not making your players drink to a dangerous level. That's quite important to stress there. And I think that's currently part of the learning process that he's going through, is trying to figure out how to do it. He has got rules in place, by the way, I will say beforehand as well, where you can state how much you're going to drink to affect each thing. So you can decide before game whether you're going to drink 2 fingers or whatever in order to increase or decrease the stats by whatever. Um, and you also are individually as players allowed to set those limits to yourself as well. So just because one person says they're going to drink a lot doesn't mean you have to follow suit and do the same. So he has put stuff like that in place. It's very important to add. But yeah, I think at the moment it's about finding that balance because, of course, the problem is if you make it the other way round so that the samurai slasher actually drinks second, again, you could have a killer DM who's just going to drink all the time until everyone has to roll sixes all the time, you know? So it is about finding a delicate balance there, but also trying to make it a safe game to play as well, I suppose. Right. Iain,
Hello.
I believe you have some D&D to tell us about and update us on your current journeys.
Yes, so, oh god, I can't remember what we did. We went to a new town in order to get a boat. So we're going to get a ship. And it turned out upon arrival at the ship that half the crew had gone missing.
Ooh.
So we had to try and find the missing crew. At which point we were harassed by seagulls.
right, okay.
So at this point, it was planned that I'd change character. So the character I'd picked wasn't suited to the group really that the other guys had picked. So I'd sort of switched out for a slightly more chaotic character. The other guy was a little bit too, I would say, boring and sensible. Whereas these guys are a little bit silly, really, really silly. So I've switched out to a warlock now. And I have proceeded to Eldritch Blast everything. It's been good though. So the whole story of the next bit was that basically people are being turned into animals.
Okay. So we've gone from Brexit to, or an equivalent of Brexit to this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So the animals that people being turned into, this was due to like a little potion a little halfling had made. So we had to hunt him down and stop the potion, break in, and like, but basically people were selling a this turns you into a animal thing as a potion
Right. Okay.
rather than a heal all potion like it should have been. So we went to the factory where it was made. We infiltrated, and I stopped the process of this being made by Eldritch blasting a guy off a railing and
Oh my
into
god.
the weird like steampunk machine that makes this potion. As he fell in, he took a massive gulp, turned into a whale, and blew up the machine. Which was, I mean, that was good. I didn't even think about that. I thought, oh, if I push this guy in, he might clog up the machine. I didn't think this guy would drop in and take a massive gulp and then turn into an animal and just blow the machine. He turned into a whale, and then like the main bad guy was like walking up and down, going, "What the is going on?" And it's just like, "Ooh," his whale was like flopping around. So it just, yeah, immediately caused havoc. It was pretty good.
That's quite cool.
Yeah, it ended with us. So we attacked the wrong warehouse initially. Um,
Oh
we
no.
we found some drug dealers
Okay.
instead.
Okay.
So it was pretty good. We took their drugs off them and put them safely in our cargo hold so that it can't affect anybody else. Um, they've been taken. Now everybody's safe. We've got them now. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. I'm sure we won't sell them.
Probably not.
Oh man.
Um, so we took those drugs, and then when we went to get paid, the guy was like, "Oh, here's your pay," and it was pitiful. It was like a day's work of pay, and I was like, "You joking? We've just saved half your loved ones. Like, pay us more." And I beans the roll really hard. He was like, "For that, I'm not paying you." And I was like,
Oh.
and I was like, "Do you know what? My character's not having any of this." So he went back and he claimed snuck in, stole some of the potion, sipped it in his tea. He turned into a newt, and I stamped on it, and then took all his money.
Jesus Christ.
Oh god.
And everyone was like, "That was a little bit hard." I was like, "He wasn't going to pay us for all that work we did." So, yeah, we stuck all those drugs. I was like, that wasn't for his benefit. That was for our benefit.
In D&D, you're not always playing a hero. I feel.
No.
Well, this is the thing. My old character would have just probably put up with that, but not this guy.
See, I find it funny how your character is now transformed into pretty much your other characters, where you go around just doing what you want. Like,
Well,
I
that's
don't
what the group was sort of playing like. It was a little bit like everyone was kind of just farting around and doing what they want.
know. Yeah,
And I was like, well, my character doesn't really fit in here because he's a little bit serious and sensible. I thought, if everyone else is going to do that, I'm going to start turning people into newts and stamping on them.
yeah.
I started a bar fight where I tried to pickpocket someone, and they went to attack me, and I hellish rebuked them as a reaction. Just set him on fire, and immediately the whole bar was like, "Ah!" I would say it's not how I've become accustomed recently to play sort of RPG games. I've sort of started, as I've gotten older, I've taken it a bit more seriously and spent a bit more time playing it in a way that's more about the story. But I think the group are quite new to RPGs in general, or haven't been in it for a while, so it's gotten a bit silly. So it's an RPG that I've allowed myself a bit of silliness in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think our next adventure is we pretty much become the a drug dealer on a boat. So I think we're going to go island to island and sell drugs now. I think that's how it's happening. I don't know if there is an overarching story, because even if there was, we've flat out ignored it a few times just to sell drugs and stuff. So
Who's
It kind of sounds like that this is turning into the kind of RPG that I want to play. I would love to play like an piratey kind of RPG.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds really good.
And it's kind of like I'm looking on the market as well, and you've got things like they've done the Sea of Thieves one that apparently isn't very good. But yeah, that sounds like that would be right up my alley, I think.
I've played a D&D campaign before where we're all pirates.
You said it didn't
And
really work though, right?
no, because there was too much freedom, and the DM couldn't prepare properly.
Mm.
I
Um,
think that might be the issue with try and make a kind of like piratey kind of campaign. I think
mm.
it
And
is having too much freedom.
Sean's DMing this one, and I don't know what he's got planned. He's gone all right so far, but I know one bit of advice I gave him was don't plan for us to do a specific thing. Plan lots of things vaguely, and then interchange the creatures to match what you want to happen.
Yeah,
Like, because you could set up this really cool encounter with wolves and stuff, and blah 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 blah, and then we choose to go out into the middle of the ocean and do something different.
yeah,
Like, it's just a case of planning encounters in a way that the monsters are interchangeable, so that you can make it different. So give players a choice of which way to go, and
mm.
the encounter's different each way, but it's the same difficulty rating and things like that. And if we do something that it doesn't fit, then save that encounter and use it next session. Find a way of fitting it in. But Sean seems to have gotten that handled, so I think we're doing that again tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to just starting blasting people again. every fight, he goes, Iain, it's your character's turn. What are you going to do? I'm just going to start blasting. It's just every time, Eldritch Blast. It knocks people 10 foot back, and if I kill people, I get health. So it's great.
That's actually pretty cool.
It's great. I'm blowing people off buildings and like stealing their life. Well, I've got my new character is it's an old character I had for a Curse of Strahd campaign, but I only really got to use it for one session before I think I became a little bit choked up with real life stuff and didn't get a chance to play it. So he's a warlock. He sources his power from like this weird obsidian gauntlet that's like stuck to his skin. It's kind of like living off him like a symbiote, and it gives him those powers. It's quite cool. The creature itself is called Death Knoll, and the idea is he can see people's life ticking down in front of him, like like that Nickelback video where everyone's got like the time above their head. It's
Okay.
a lot like that. But the idea is, it's never. It's not partially so it's not an advantage in the actual game, but partially because this is how it would be. Everyone's decisions and things they do change at the flick of a finger constantly all the time. So this number is never steady. It's just constantly flipping, changing. It's only when certain death is approaching that it actually ticks down. It's like 10, 9, 8, 7. So it's quite cool because my character can tell when people are about to die.
That's like that film, isn't it?
And sort of intervene.
It's not. You're not talking about like that Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, like when they've got time as a
that was
currency and stuff.
awful.
Do you know what?
That was so bad.
I didn't mind it, but I do like the fact that it has that.
I absolutely hate it.
It's quite cool, but it's not a reliable source of information because people change their mind all the time. They might not die and stuff might happen. It's only for when like someone's been hit by an arrow and they're about to bleed out, and it goes like 4, 3, 2, and it's like at that point I can't do anything. So yeah, but like it's quite interesting. It's a cool character, and it's much better suited in a campaign.
Okay. Shall we move on to a game that we've all been playing? Separately. Well, together, but...
Well, a little bit separately.
Yeah.
We've been playing the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, I think it is now.
Oh, I don't know what edition.
Yeah, because I've got 6th edition. They're on 7th now. Yeah, we've been playing a campaign together with a fairly large group.
Yeah, it's quite a substantial one, this one, actually.
7 of us, I think.
6 of us.
Yeah.
Six of us and the DM.
7 if you include the Games Master.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've... Call of Cthulhu plays quite differently to a lot of other RPGs. It's not about combat at all. It's about an investigation and using investigative skills. So we've all been hired by, is it Global News Service?
GNS,
Yes, that's
GNS,
it,
yeah. GNS. We've all been somewhat blackmailed or talked into working for them. They're all to do with our own individual stories that we cannot talk about right now. And yeah, we've essentially been sent off on our first case. We still haven't quite solved it, but we're well on our way to either solving it or having the world end horribly.
Yeah, fine line.
I'm
It's
looking
kind
forward
of
to seeing which one of those it is.
yeah. You see, we originally uh, went out to investigate this story about a lake turning red because of the algae there. But it quickly got derailed into something else, but very quickly started turning itself back. Essentially, the whole investigation centers around a little girl that's been kidnapped.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but under very strange
Yeah,
circumstances.
super suspicious circumstances. It's really odd.
It's
So
kind of yeah. Go on.
I was going to say the girl is part of a family that you would have to describe as a religious cult, and they don't really shy away from the fact that they're part of kind of uh, it's not a cult in the sense that you would
It's a
imagine, like people in
controversial
robes and
offshoot
stuff
of
like that.
Christianity.
Yes, that's probably the best way of putting it. But also very much, we're American. We can carry guns. We can protect ourselves. We're we're preparing for the worst. We're like with
It's like
fallout shelters
a
and stuff
cult
like that. You know.
militia.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
doomsday preppers. Almost.
I mean,
But it
I'd say
seems
they
like,
are, yeah.
but the head figures of this cult don't necessarily overly exert those beliefs necessarily, but they have their sect that obviously protect them, kind of thing. Like they very much put themselves across as a very understanding kind of people, I
Mm.
suppose. Like your figureheads of it are very savvy with the public and stuff, I would
Yeah.
say. Um, yeah, so far, what have we done so far?
I've done a lot of driving.
Yep.
Flashing your badge. You flash your badge like whenever possible.
I'm the only actual currently employed law enforcement officer.
It cracks me out because
Yeah.
just like every time we get somewhere, it's like yeah, flash the badge. Like,
So
Yeah, well, instantly
swap.
people go, "Oh wow, this guy works for Interpol," and just lets me do stuff. That's why I do it. Is I walk if I walked into a building like a crime scene and just start kicking around the courts, people were like, "Get out! You're not allowed back here." But the fact I can get to places, show them my badge, and they go, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll help you." It's like,
yeah.
great. I don't really work for the police. I'm just sort of the police. I can sort of do
Yeah,
what I
that
want.
that kind of like I kept thinking that as this whole thing was going on, where you'd constantly be showing your badge, and I was thinking, you're not actually police, are
I
you? Not
technically
right now,
am. I
currently.
technically am.
Yeah.
So I used to work for London Metropolitan Police, and I've been transferred to Interpol, but as a external investigator assisting GNS with something.
Yeah.
So that they fixed it all up with lawyers or whatever, so that I can technically be an Interpol police officer that reports directly to them,
Okay.
which is weird because I can walk into crime scenes and say, "I'm here to help," and
Hmm.
then almost help you guys get the first scoop for the news, and then
Yeah.
yeah, but I
I
don't know, it's weird. I didn't realise we'd be solving a crime. We spent a lot of time in this session solving a crime, right? I thought maybe we'd be using my contacts to get information, but
yeah.
apparently we're solving the mystery as well. It's weird.
I think the thing is the way we've taken it that way,
Mm.
but our task that's been given to us, actually, we keep speaking to various different people from GNS in over the course of the
Well,
campaign.
they asked us to
It's
find the girl.
yeah, yeah. But what I mean is, whenever they talk to us, they keep talking in terms of, "Have you got our story yet?"
Yes, true.
That's how they keep saying it to us. So I think the whole idea is kind of the police are terribly incompetent. They're not going to get anywhere with it, so we kind of have to take it into our own hands ourselves to try and get the jump on the story, I
Yeah.
suppose,
Yeah.
is the way you'd kind of see it. But essentially, our little ragtag group kind of consists of 2 actual investigators, 3 people who are basically scum of the earth photographers, and well, I would say 2 out of the 3. I would say, and
are you
one.
are you excluding Ree from this? Because she definitely is.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. She very much doesn't come across that way at the moment.
No, but I don't think her character is particularly far from prison.
Yeah, okay.
Amazing.
But then we've got one other. How would you describe Juniper?
Southern Belle is
Completely
the words.
naive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think she comes from like a religious cult family,
yeah,
so she's super naive about the world.
yeah.
It's
But
different. She's very happy-go-lucky, isn't she, and very friendly, which is kind of a bit. Oh, I don't know.
Like, there's no other characters in our campaign that are so happy.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird.
But essentially, so far in this campaign, we've managed to track down the girl. We're currently actually keeping them away from the police because it actually turns out there's more to this than a simple kidnapping.
Yeah.
The kidnapping, it appears, is someone keeping
They're protecting
them
the child,
away
aren't they?
from harm. Yeah, they're keeping them away from harm rather than kidnapping them for malicious reasons, I suppose.
Yeah.
That said, there is still a religious family that want their kid back. That we've only really just discovered are dealing with forces that are beyond our comprehension. Essentially, the how many plagues is it they had in ancient Egypt?
7?
It was something like that. Essentially, the plagues of Egypt are basically playing out. So, the sea's turning red, plague of frogs, plague of locusts, people breaking out into boils, all things like that. They've slowly been happening, and we're working our way towards where everything basically goes black. So,
I think
that's
we're at a
essentially
weird point, aren't we? Where we don't know we don't know who's on the right team where. We don't know who to help.
yeah, we've got half a team that are currently trying to protect the girl, and half the team are trying to figure out just what is up with the religious family at the moment.
Yeah.
I think what's happened in this campaign, and the guy that's running the game, Phil, he did kind of say that this is very much a campaign that's aimed at mainly Iain's character, to an extent Andy's, like the photographers, which is me, Daryl, and Ree. Although Ree's actually been doing a lot of the investigative stuff really well.
Yeah.
Me
Yes,
and Daryl have been struggling a bit more.
So she's an investigative sort of journalist style thing, isn't she? Like, she looks into her
Yeah.
targets, like she really researches them.
Yeah.
And I think Juniper, who's played by Chloe, is a similar thing where she writes up her targets and things like that. So they're both doing lots of research stuff. You two are taking lots of pictures and like trying to get in-depth information from what you see. And then me and Andy are doing. He's a PI, so he's doing a lot of work looking into the case, and I'm doing a lot of work looking into the case as well. So I'm doing it from a sort of legal side, and he's doing it from a sort of not so legal side.
Where I think we'll leave this is the fact that we've kind of realised that at the end of our last campaign, we realised that the only person that is going to be able to really infiltrate the church is my character, who is horrible at dealing with people, just genuinely a really unsavoury character.
It's just an asshole.
Yeah,
like by choice as well. Like, it's not,
yeah,
you're not like,
really
oh,
is.
it's unfortunate that people don't like him. It's like, I know he's entirely at fault for people not liking him.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly who he is, and I don't quite know how well this is going to go. But to be honest, if it's a disaster, it'll probably make it a bit more fun at the moment, because we're kind of at a stuck point at the moment at the church end of things. Essentially, there's a church that we just cannot break into. It's too heavily guarded. We did have a plan at one point to blow up a generator, which was surrounded by people carrying fully automatic guns. At which point we kind of realised this probably isn't going to end well for us if we actually go through with this.
Yeah,
But
so I'm not sure why my character's gone into the route of arson and breaking and entering, but he's definitely gone into it.
is your guy like a paparazzi photographer that's just gonna do whatever just to try and
Yeah,
get
I
a
mean,
shot
pretty
kind of
much,
thing?
but I
Like, doesn't
mean,
care if he's breaking the law.
considering like my previous to this was I spent a couple of months working undercover so I wouldn't like kind of be spotted in a job to get this like to get like the perfect photo. I feel like I've definitely taken a turn for the worst, but our benefactor, shall we say, did say that we would be able to get out of some crimes and they would help us in that respect. So I'm trying to
Bear in
push
mind,
this.
bear in mind that your plan of blowing up the generator, it probably wouldn't have mattered if GNS were gonna bail us out from committing crimes
I would have
because
been
we were
shot.
probably gonna be dead.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how much crime they can get us out of, because your plan did consist of damage to property, breaking and entry, assault, probably.
I don't think I was going to assault anyone. I wanted to try and make it
I think it would have
a
ended in
distraction,
an
wasn't
assault.
it? It was to be a distraction to get people away from the front or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just want to try and see how far I can push GNS and see if they will bail me out. I like the idea that we spend the whole of the next campaign doing the thing, and it's me just in prison. Like that's my RP. I have to RP
Phil
prison
keeps cutting back to you. He was just like,
in the shower.
right, today your meal is just basic meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
There's
Oh.
no sauce.
Oh, it just that's it. Today you looked funny at one of the gangs in there, and now you have to make a decision. Which gang are you joining with? Oh.
Oh, well. We have got our next session of this coming up soon, so we'll probably be talking about this some more on the next podcast, I think.
Yeah.
At this point, shall we move on to some news?
Yes.
Yeah, we've been talking for like an hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I forgot what order we said we were going to do this in.
Reopening
first?
soon.
Ian.
Here we go.
Games Workshop are reopening their online stores soon, and I think they're looking into actual stores later down the line after that as soon as they can. But I think it's the first step on the road to companies looking to reopen their custom in regards to non-essentials such as board games and tabletop hobbies.
Yes.
So I think it's worth noting that Games Workshop have taken a relatively early step on being one of the first companies to reopen their warehouses. I know there were some that didn't close at all, but obviously they closed being almost completely non-essential.
There's honestly a lot of stores a lot of web stores, shall I say, that have stayed open throughout the entirety of the thing.
I think it's an interesting step in the direction that a lot of hobby companies haven't stayed open. So GW are taking a step in the direction of starting to get towards the reopening stage. Something that they have done, which I think is really nice, is they've got a new model they're releasing as part of this, and it's being given for free to independent retailers that support GW, so they can sell it and they can make all the profit from the figure. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think I sent it to you before, Steve. It's the Catachan model, and it looks like the guy.
Oh,
What
Dylan!
what's the Arnie film? Dylan. Yeah.
It looks like Carl Weathers in Predator. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it looks like, and it's pretty good.
See, it's like a mixture because for me it looks like Sergeant Johnson from Halo, which is really weird. So it's like it's kind of it's kind of hit two characters up, and I really want to get a Sergeant Johnson type character. But it definitely, looking up it closer, it definitely is more Dylan-esque with the muscles and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's another thing is like Sly Marbo. I think it's supposed to be paired with, isn't it? Who obviously is supposed to be forget the character's name. Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah,
isn't
it's,
it?
it's basically Rambo, isn't
I
it?
can't. Yeah, it's John.
Rambo.
I was thinking, what's Rambo's name? It's thinking in my head, it's John Rambo. And it's nice that they're going down that route. And I'd like to see more and more interesting little Imperial Guard characters, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah,
I know there's Sergeant Harker as well, looks very cool. But yeah, anyway, that's a model that's being released so that I guess independent retailers that support GW can start recouping losses and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But it's quite a cool idea.
yeah.
It's quite interesting because I think the reason why Games Workshop haven't been able to carry on running their online stores and things like that, because I think a lot of the stores that have stayed open actually tend to be those smaller run stores that are almost family run businesses, because they can keep one or two people in the store actually to deal with web orders. And whereas Games Workshop obviously are a big company with stores all over the country, they employ a hell of a lot of people, and it probably becomes logistically quite difficult for them to do so, I imagine. So I imagine that's the reason why, as to why they've probably stayed closed. But there are one or two stores that have been able to stay open.
Mm.
I'm not entirely sure, but I imagine it's something like that. Daryl, would you like to
Hello.
speak next?
I would like to speak. I have the floor. So this is a Kickstarter coming from Steam Forge Games. So a little while back they did a Resident Evil 2 game, a miniatures game, and now they are going with Resident Evil 3. So it's pretty much similar to the original one, like miniature figures on a kind of board. You've got characters based on the games, and it looks, like I say, it looks really, really good. Same kind of sort of style. The last one was really good. I think it came with a load of different Kickstarter exclusives and extra little bits. It currently has 14 days to go. They have a goal of £150,000, and they've already smashed that, so it's on 300 now. Um, what is kind of interesting that I was looking at, there doesn't seem to be too many stretch goals in this one at the moment. So the last one, I think there was about uh, there was I think there was add-ons and different like kind of expansions and like a special different team sort of selection. With this one so far, there is only a Jill Valentine, a biker Jill Valentine, and a disco Jill Valentine. There's a couple of stretch goals with a few other figures and stuff like that, and different game modes. But essentially, it's quite light, this one, which isn't too bad. They have options to buy extra stuff, so you can buy. Um, I think it looks really nice. It's a retro pack, so the box basically looks like the original artwork on the PS1 game, I guess, wasn't it? Yeah, PS1.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Damn, man, that's really old. So the cards are kind of tricked out like that. There's also a few more tiles you can buy. There's some really nice dice, which I quite like, that come in a like blood vial with an umbrella logo on them. It's just a nice little case and stuff like that. So it's pretty much there to go. The last one was done and funded and kind of smashed. I mean, they're quite a good company. They've come in from what they got. They did a Horizon Zero Dawn board game, a Devil May Cry board game, God Tier, Dark Souls. They've done some pretty heavy hitters, and they've all been pretty decent looking games. I have Resident Evil 2. I have yet to play it. I have noticed they have a one-player game on there, so what I'm going to do is probably set that up and probably have a go at that, because I've been dying to play it and I didn't realise it was only single player as well. So that'd be nice to kind of have a go on it. That is me.
Okay. I wanted to, although it's going to be finished by the time this podcast goes out. I've been looking at the They Live Assault on Cable 54 Kickstarter. Like say, by the time this goes out, the Kickstarter unfortunately will be finished. But it just looks amazing. It's another John Carpenter film adapted to a board game. The immediate thing that caught my attention was the dice in this game. They are not your standard dice. In fact, it's a bit hard to make out what exactly they all do, because the sides of the dice say things like kick ass and chew bubblegum and stuff like that.
That's amazing.
So without playing the game, it's a bit hard to actually make out what the dice is actually going to do. There's lots of really cool things on the stretch goals in this. This is kind of why I wanted to talk about it, because you can get the glasses that they wear in order to
Oh my God, that's cool.
see all the signs that say consume and obey and things like that. There's a really cool T-shirt that you can get with it as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that now. It's cool as hell.
But essentially the game kind of flows in this way that players take their actions and navigate their way around a map, but then things on the map respond to you. Obviously, you'll be unlocking different locations and things like that because you're trying to. I imagine you're like the film. You're kind of like trying to find the mothership, I suppose, and bring it down. But I love that the last phase is propaganda. So it's where the TV talks to talks to the citizens and talks them into hunting down the terrorists. So that's obviously how they populate the board with enemies and stuff like that, and provide threat for the players. To be honest, I kind of just wanted to talk about this because I love the film They Live so much. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff on there. A lot of
I
cool
love
things on the stretch
the
goals.
kind of like the look of it. It's very like 80s retro.
Yeah, very much like
Like the
movies,
box and
like
stuff.
the kind of posters you used to get from around the time.
Yeah. I'm loving the they've got like a VHS
Yep, I was just about to bring that
style
up.
box, which is cool as hell. Sorry, man.
For all the stretch goals. Yeah, it's very cool.
Mm.
Very, very cool. You can actually get hold of the beta version of the rulebook as well if you make your way over to the Kickstarter page. So although it's late, you can still have a look at it. I imagine this is probably going to be coming to retail. I don't think this is going to stay Kickstarter exclusive. The very fact that they've got Kickstarter exclusive content means I think this is definitely going to be hitting the store shelves eventually. Hopefully it's a bit better than Big Trouble in Little China, which although we really enjoy, you can easily see how someone who doesn't know anything about Big Trouble in Little China would enjoy that game.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious about the chewing bubblegum thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like the look of that. Okay. Audience questions. We do not have one this week. Is the long and short of it. So please, if you want to send us a question that we will answer on this very podcast, you can send them to mailbag@everybodydice.com. And like I say, it can be about anything you want, not just about board game stuff, and we will attempt to answer it on this show.
Like favourite biscuits.
Yeah. By all means, ask us what our favourite biscuits
Ooh.
are. Don't answer it. They need to ask. I guess we move on to the big topic. Which this week is, should board games be released at the same time as its first expansion? This is something that's been happening in the board gaming world at an increasingly alarming rate recently. It's not only Kickstarter games as well. This very much started because of Kickstarter. A lot of the time you would have a Kickstarter, you would have the base game. If we hit this stretch goal, we'll also make this expansion. Some of it, that's kind of how it started, but these days it's, we're making this game with this expansion. You can get the game and the expansion all at once if you pledge this amount of money. That's kind of what it's turned into at this point. I imagine giving away expansions based on unlocking goals and stuff like that probably is quite costly in the long run. So I imagine a lot of them adapted to that. But you find at retail now, games released straight to retail will sometimes release with 1 or 2 expansion packs already released for them. Really, I just wanted to know, what do you guys think of that? This is very much something I feel that has been very much heavily influenced by the way the video game industry has been moving in.
It's almost like day one releases, isn't it, on video games with the expansions?
It is a bit.
Where you get like the day one content.
I did go through a phase of boycotting companies that did that.
And now they all do it, pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
much.
I only really accept it when it's non-game content, if that makes sense. Or it's like,
Well, you can't get it in the
describe
game.
it.
You can't get it in a game for other means, basically.
No. Like, if you can't get it in the game from other means, they should have done better. They should have put it
Yeah,
in for you. Like they've made a game and you've paid full price for that game. They should give you all the
yeah,
content. What I'm not super opposed by is um, stuff like costumes,
Mm.
yeah,
skins. If you're holding entire missions,
yeah.
fuck you.
They should have been in the game basically.
Yeah. If they're finished for release, then you are basically screwing everyone over.
Do you
You
think
should.
there should
I
be
hate you.
like when you said about the costumes things? We'll go back to the main question, but do you think the costumes should be allowed to be different depending on where you get them from, or depending on what different format you buy it in?
Mm,
Because I find this is a lot of the things at the
no,
moment.
it doesn't affect the game, does it? Like,
No, it's more the fact that, like, say, all right, let's say, I'm trying to think of a game. All right, okay, I'm going to bring up Fortnite. Fortnite has and Apex Legends. They have different suits, don't they, depending on which console you buy it on.
Yeah,
So, would you say it's fair to give?
does that? It doesn't. The problem with Fortnite is it's not really a full game, is it?
yeah,
The
No.
joy of Fortnite is collecting that
Yeah,
stuff
100%.
and pretending like that mattered.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say with Fortnite, as a non-Fortnite player, I would say no. Things. Oh, what's the word for it? There's a term for it, isn't it?
I couldn't tell you.
It's gonna really bug me now. It's when it's just for looks.
Oh,
Yeah,
aesthetics.
Yeah, if it's aesthetic content, I mean that's not the word, but yeah, sure.
yeah. That's not
Let's do
Cosmetic,
it.
cosmetic, cosmetic.
Yeah, that's
There you
Cosmetic,
go.
thank you. If it's just cosmetic content, then no, it doesn't affect the game other than how you
yeah,
look.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like having a costume if you pre-order for the character in an
Yeah, yeah,
RPG.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's super, but it's someone who can't afford it at the
Mm,
time, who then plays the game 3 months down the line when it's cheaper, isn't missing out on the
yeah,
game.
No, they're just getting a like a costume or something like that. I I'm not a fan of right. So
I mean, I don't know how this translates into board
I was going to
games.
it
say
will do.
expansion wise.
So
Basically, if all right, so let's say I got what did I buy? I bought that Lords of Helios on Kickstarter,
yeah,
right?
Right.
Now, one of the main things was you got another expansion and you got some other expansions, and then you also could, if you wanted to, buy like a fifth player expansion.
okay,
So all of that was kind of released, and you can get it all as you go. The thing I'm sort of not keen on necessarily is the fact that buying. So let's say that it came out the day one, and I bought it, and I also bought the expansions of it. I probably won't be playing that expansion anytime soon, so it's kind of a weird thing to be bringing
yeah.
out something there and then for like all right, fifth player I can understand because it might be a game where you want to play with five players and you have a dedicated team that want to
But
play it for
then,
five times.
if it's ready to go and they've already got it balanced, then why not just
Yeah,
include the fifth player in the core
yeah.
box? That actually then does. And this really is where I wanted to ask a question a second ago, and that
Mhm.
is there a difference between releasing a mission expansion on day of release on a video game any different from releasing it on a board game?
Not necessarily, no,
Yeah,
because it's still extra content, isn't it, that you're paying extra for?
it is.
But then with some stuff, I will accept it. So, like Root, for
Yeah,
instance, the game itself is a fantastic game. The fact that they're adding extra factions later isn't a bad thing because it does give the same base game more replayability because you're forever sort of purchasing a new character, if you will,
it
which then adds different dimensions to the game, doesn't
it
it?
does. But at what point do you say Root when it was released and it had all
Mm.
the content in it? At what point does that get exhausted that you need an add-on pack released for it on day one?
Yeah,
I think that's the thing.
It's difficult to justify, isn't it, if something's ready for
Yeah,
release? I mean, there are occasions where I would say it's fine.
I would.
So, Star Wars Legion releasing extra models
Yeah, you see,
is different, isn't it?
yeah, I would almost say that in content-heavy games,
mm.
releasing that extra content on day one where people want to mix things in and mix it up a bit from the beginning, that's almost not so bad, I think, because a lot of the time, like I would say, even with Root releasing those extra expansions and stuff, I would argue that's not too bad, because the option is there for someone else. However, you still have a full game that you can mess around with, you can change about, and it's all in the core box, and you can play it perfectly fine without the expansion. So I would say that's actually not so bad with Root, because I would say as long as they plan to keep that expansion in print, and really this is where it really comes into it here. It's fine to release that content on day one, because what you're adding are extra ways of being able to mix up the game. I'm fine with that, because I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything necessarily by having just the core game. I can, however, think of a bad example of it. Time Stories was one of them.
Oh yeah.
Where you get a base game with one mission in it, and there was an expansion release straight away on release. That one mission you play, when you're done playing with it, it's done, it's finished, and it is something that you can play and finish in an afternoon. The idea that second mission wasn't including in the box does kind of bug me a bit, because they know that not only is it something that you can play relatively quickly, but it doesn't have a great deal of replayability to it as well. In order to further enjoy that game, you need to buy the expansions. And if those expansions were released on day one, it means they were ready to go, at which point I feel like you're exploiting people, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem is, like you say, the nature of Kickstarter is to be bringing out like accessories and extensions and stuff like that. But the problem is with that even is you're kind of limited with Kickstarter, because a lot of the times you won't necessarily get everything all in one, will you? Because we've had that quite a few times.
Yeah.
Where stuff's kind of, especially with Steam, not Steam Forge, especially with Awaken Realms kind of stuff, they tend to kind of ship stuff later on, which is probably okay considering you're doing, like the starter set,
Yeah.
if you will, play that first, and then maybe later on down the line the new stuff will come, which is quite cool. But it is kind of that whole thing with, it goes back to the problem is though with like games, most board games are complete.
Yeah.
Like board games where they differ to games like video games, most board games are complete. I would say they're a complete package.
You can't release a board game that requires a day
No.
one patch to it, where you have to get
No.
a second kind of... Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then it's kind of weird, because then they go into like second stages, don't they? Or like you'll get like slightly updated, maybe they might have some new components, but it will be kind of further down the line, so like X-Wing to X-Wing sort of version 2 in a way, which is kind of weird. It's a weird concept, because it doesn't, I don't know, I think it genuinely depends on the board game. I think depending
It definitely
on the board
has to
game,
be taken on a case by case basis, because there are some games where it's just no, you can't just half your game and charge separate bits.
I
to play
like.
it. But there
Sorry.
are. I have a lot of sympathy for when it's a year down the line they release an extra bit of content, because it wasn't ready day one. If it's ready day one, it should be in the box though. That's my general.
I think just going especially back to the example that you gave, Daryl, earlier about the Lords of Helios thing, where you're denying an extra player when they already have all of the things that would balance it in place, so you could have a fifth player from day one of the game being released, but you can only have it if you buy this expansion. I don't particularly like that, particularly.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
But yeah, it's a case by case
it's
basis,
different.
I think, with board games. It is a bit different, I think.
I would be really annoyed if it was like games.
Yeah.
And you have to wait like for a day one patch where it's basically like, I don't know, the card you were missing or something.
Yeah. Anyway, on that, thank you very much for joining us. If you want to follow us on social medias, you can on Twitter at EverybodyDice and on Instagram at EverybodyDiceShow. We also have a Facebook page that you can find at facebook.com/EverybodyDice. Please don't forget to send us your podcast questions at mailbag@everybodydice.com. These details will all also be in the links below. Finally, if you want to find all of our stuff in one place, you can do at everybodydice.com, and there should be some videos on screen around here at the moment. Be sure to give them a click, watch those as well, and maybe give it a like, share, and subscribe too. Anyway, until next
Do
time,
it. Do it.
Do
do
it.
it.
Come on, do
Do
it
it.
now.
Do it now.
Come
Bye.
on.
Ah,
Come on, do it.
Stella.
Bye.
Bye.